Rabotai, we are continuing on Masechet Chagigah. It's going to be Be'ezrat Hashem the final shiur, finishing up the Masechta, and we are on Daf Chavav, Amud Bet, the bottom of the Amud. We are in midst the discussion of what is considered Mekabel Tum'ah in regards to the Shulchan in the Mikdash, in the Kodesh. And the Gemara suggested in the name of Resh Lakish that the Shulchan HaTahor, it means that perhaps it could become Tameh. The Gemara said, wait a second, how does the Shulchan, because they had to warn the Kohanim who were Ameh Haaretz not to touch the Shulchan during the course of the entire Chag, because, if it becomes Tameh, then you're in trouble, because it says, Tamid, that you have to have the Lechem HaPanim always on the shulchan. So what are you going to do when you have to dip it in the mikveh? So therefore you don't want it to become tameh. The Gemara says, wait a second, does that mean that it could become tameh? How can it become tameh? Isn't it a kli etz ha'asur lenachat? A kli etz, a wooden vessel that is supposed to always be stationary, does not become tameh. We learned that from a pasuk that compares the kli etz with sak and beged, and we darshin in the Gemara, just like a sak, a bag, is nitaltel, is carried male verekan, full and empty. Kli etz also is like that. It's only mekabel tumah, it's only susceptible to tumah if it is taltel male verekam, if it's carried, it's made to be carried full and empty. And shulchan is supposed to be stationary. It's supposed to sit in the mikdash. The Gemara said no. Shulchan also was carried because what you did was you had to carry it. You had to carry it to show the Oleh Regalim, to show the people who would be going up to Shalosh Regalim, that the nes would happen every week in the mikdash. That when you would put the Lechem HaPanim at the end of the week, and you would take the old one, which was sitting there on the shulchan for an entire week, it was still fresh. Lechem cham, Tosafot says maybe it was not steaming, maybe it was hot, but it was fresh, soft. Just like the day that you put it on. It was a miracle. It was one of the constant miracles of the Mikdash. So whenever the Oleh Regalim would come up, they would pick up the shulchan, bring it to the opening of the Kodesh to show the people the freshness of the Lechem HaPanim. That's one of the things. So it was made to be carried, and therefore it is susceptible to Tumah. That's what the Gemara says. I said, wait a second. Aren't you missing something much bigger? It should be susceptible to Tumah because of its cover. It's plated gold. When something is plated with metal, it has the halachot of metal. And the Gemara went to prove that from the Mishnah in Masechet Kelim in Perek Chavbet, chapter 22 of Masechet Kelim. There it's talking about also a shulchan, which is plated with metal. And there it says, well, if it has this cup holder that you didn't cover gold, so the cup holder still is wood, then is it or is it not susceptible to Tum'ah? If it's bigger place that you didn't cover, is it or is it not susceptible to Tum'ah? Machloket in the Mishnah. But something is certain. If the whole thing is covered with metal, it certainly is susceptible to Tum'ah. You see that from the Mishnah in Masechet Kelim, chapter 22. That's where we're holding in the Gemara. Now the Gemara says, wait a second, maybe the reason there that the wood is not chashuv, and you go after the halachot of the metal covering it, is because the wood was not a chashuv, an important, a good quality wood. But maybe when you have high quality wood, you have the best of the best, the most expensive and high quality wood. Maybe that's not going to be batel, maybe that's not going to be considered nullified to the cover, a little thin cover of gold that you put on. And that's where the Gemara is holding now. So says the Gemara, Hanicha leResh Lakish, that suggestion only works for Resh Lakish, the Amar, Lo Shanu Ela Bekeli, Akes Lagim. Maybe only a Keli that was not so important. Now, Akes Lagim is Machloket, Rashi and Tosafot. The Tosafot hold that this is a name of a place. Rashi holds that this is a wooden vessel that was covered with ore, with leather on top of it. And it's not so important, the wood inside, because you're not focused on the wood. It's going to be used with the leather on top. So the wood that you would use would be like some very low quality wood, because who cares? It's covered with something that is going to be used on top, beautiful and high quality. So the wood would be irrelevant. They wouldn't use high quality wood. That would come from outside the country. But when you had something that was high quality wood, lo batli, maybe that should not be nullified to the gold plate on the outside. So says the Gemara, that's only according to Resh Lakish. It will come out good, because Resh Lakish holds if you have low quality inside, it's nullified to the cover. If you have high quality inside, it's not batel, it's not nullified to the cover. But Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with Resh Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan says, I don't care what's inside. When you have a cover of metal, it's always metal. If you have the most expensive, the best quality wood inside, it doesn't matter. You have it gold plated, it's gold. If it looks like gold, if it feels like gold, it is gold. I don't care what you have inside of it. Rabbi Yochanan holds even if you have a high quality inside, still is batil to the outside plate, outside gold plated cover. How do you understand that? In other words, according to Rabbi Yochanan, which we usually pass like Rabbi Yochanan, the shulchan in the Beit HaMikdash should be considered wood or gold? Gold. If it's gold, should be susceptible to tumah or not? Yes. So why in the world do you need to deal with this whole carry? Is it carryable? Is it not carryable? Do you move it? Is it hasui l'nachad? It's not kli'etz. The whole question of stationary, not stationary, starts when you have a kli'etz hasui l'nachad. This is not kli'etz. This is halachically considered kli zahav because of the gold plated outside. V'chitema. And if you want to push and be stubborn and say, Kach b'sipui omed, kam b'sipui she'en omed. You say, well, it depends how you did the gold plating. If you do the gold plating and you make it hard, like one piece, by putting small nails inside and literally attaching them together, maybe that's when it's called gold plated. But if you just have a cover a little bit on top of it, that's not considered attached. Maybe you want to argue that and say, well, the Mishnah in Kelim Perek Chafbet is talking about something that you made it solid, you nailed it down and it's become one. But Shulchan was not nailed, that was just gold plated cover on the outside. Maybe you want to say that and say that that's why the Mishnah in Kelim says it's considered gold, and our Gemara seems to suggest that the Shulchan was considered etz, was considered wood. Maybe that's the difference. You can't say that. You know why you can't say that? Because Resh Lakish attempted that himself. He went to his Rebbe, to his Chavruta, to Rabbi Yochanan. He asked him, said, does it make a difference? And Rabbi Yochanan said, no, nice try, but it doesn't make a difference. Right? So it's been done already. Says the Gemara, Haba mineh Resh Lakish mi Rabbi Yochanan. Resh Lakish asked this very question from Rabbi Yochanan. Besipui omed or besipui she'en omed? Is the gold-plated cover, which is nailed down and attached to well, any different than when it's eno omed, when it's not, nailed down and it's not attached to well, it doesn't have longevity? Says the Gemara, bechopet lebazbezav or beshe'eno chopet lebazbezav. Does it make a difference? Does it make a difference if the gold cover is all the way up to the tip and to the lip and goes over, or is it just outside on the lower level of the kli and doesn't come up all the way to the lip. Says the Gemara, Resh Lakish asked this question, and Rabbi Yochanan answered, Ve'amar le, Rabbi Yochanan answered Resh Lakish, Lo shela b'sipui omed, ve'lo shela b'sipui she'en omed. Doesn't make a difference if you nail it down and attached it well. Doesn't make a difference if you didn't nail it down and you didn't attach it well. Says the Gemara, Lo shela b'chofes lebazbezav, ve'lo shela b'she'eno chofe et lebazbezav. Doesn't make a difference if he covers the whole thing, covers only part of the outside. So therefore, all of it, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is going to be considered gold-plated. It's gold. So why in the world is Mizbeach HaZahav, the Shulchan HaZahav different? Why is Shulchan considered a wooden vessel, not a gold-plated gold vessel? The Mishnah in Perek Chaf Bet of Kelim teaches us if you have gold-plated vessel, for all practical purposes, it is considered gold. And our Gemara clearly holds that the Shulchan in the Mikdash was not considered a gold vessel, was considered a Kli Etz. That's why we need to discuss whether or not it is Kli Etz Asui Lenachat. Is it something that's a stationary? Is it something that's not a stationary? What's the difference? So says the Gemara, the difference is Ela Shani Shulchan. Shulchan is the only vessel in the world that's different. Why is it different? Because the pasuk sets it apart from all the other vessels in the world. The Rachmana Karye Etz. Because Hashem in the pasuk has called the Shulchan Etz. So if Hashem calls it Etz, I don't care about the Mishnah in Kelim, because this has been singled out to be considered etz, even though that is gold-plated. Now, where do you see that? Now, preface to this is Yechezkel HaNavi. We started the last perek with his Nevuah, perek Aleph, of Maaseh Merkava, of Yechezkel ben Buzi Kohen. But Yechezkel did not just see Maaseh Merkava. He's also famous for 7 prakim in his Sefer Yechezkel from Perek Mem through Mem Zayin that discusses the structure of the third Bet HaMikdash with all of its details and sizes and vessels and everything you need to know about third Bet HaMikdash. Sefer Yechezkel, Perek Mem to Mem Zayin. Now you see how upset you are that in school they didn't teach you Navi. There we go. Yeah, you got to go learn today all of the 7 prakim and learn about Bayit Shelishi, how it's going to look like, right? So says the pasuk in Yechezkel when speaking about the Shulchan, and this is how the Targum Yerushalmi says it over there, right? The Targum Yonatan says it over there. Says the pasuk Dichtiv. The pasuk says, HaMizbeach Etz, it's a reference to the Shulchan. He calls it the Mizbeach. We're going to deal with that in just a second. But it's a reference to the Shulchan. It's talking about the Shulchan in Bayit Shlishi. It says the Mizbeach, which means the Shulchan, Etz is made out of wood. It's a wooden Shulchan. Shalosh Amud Gavoa, it's going to be 3 amod high, ve'orko 2 amod, and the length of it is going to be 2 amod, umikzeotav lo ve'orko ve'kirotav etz. It is etz. Vaydaber elai, and Hashem told me, Zeh HaShulchan, it's a pasuk that you're very much familiar with because we say this in the beginning of benching. Zeh HaShulchan asher lifnei Hashem. This is the Shulchan that's in front of Hashem. Now you will right away know why we say this in the beginning of benching, is because of the following Gemara. But nevertheless, we're done discussing this because now we have a pasuk in Yechezkel that calls the Shulchan in the Bet HaMikdash Shulchan Etz. So when the pasuk calls it Etz, you could have the Mishnayot from now until Mashiach comes, still is called Etz. So once it's called a Kli Etz in the pasuk, we deal with it like a Kli Etz, like a wooden vessel. Now, if it would have been Asui Lenachat, if it would be a stationary, it would be Tahor. And that's why the Gemara went through this whole surprising things. Gemara says, Tahor, why do you have to yell at the Kohanim or Amaretz not to touch it? Let them touch it. And Gemara said, no, because it's not stationary. Because they will pick it up, bring it on to show people the open miracle of Lechem HaPanim. Therefore, it's not Asur Lenachad. Hence, it's susceptible to Tum'ah. And therefore, you have to warn the Kohanim who are Amaretz not to touch it.
Rabbi,
Comes a full circle.
does the table always have to be made out of wood and covered with gold, or could it be made out
Correct. It has to be. All of those things are Halacha Moshe Misinai. Everything that was in the Mikdash, Hakol Bichtav, everything was from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is actually, just in quick parentheses, this is the reason that Rav Moshe Feinstein holds that the Mechitza in the Bet Knesset is a concept deoraita. He holds not having a Mechitza in the Bet Knesset is a Isur deoraita. Why is it Isur deoraita? Because the Gemara says in Masechet Sukkah Daf Nun Aleph that if you come to the nights of Chag HaSukkot, they had Simchat Beit HaShoeva, and it says in Mishnah there says, the Gemara explains, the Tikkun Gadol that they made, they had the Ezrat Nashim that they built during the Chag HaSukkot. The woman would go on a balcony, they would build the balcony, right? And says Rav Moshe Feinstein, based on Tosafot HaRosh and other Gemarot, that you cannot put any extra things in the Mikdash if it was not Midoraita needed. No, nothing you can make, because every structure, every detail has to be Midoraita. You can't just say, oh, well, some people coming, let's put a Mechitza. It doesn't work like that. It has to be Midoraita, says Rav Moshe Feinstein. Hence, you see the concept of, I'm overly simplifying it again. It says in Orach Chaim, Chelek Aleph, Siman Lametet of Shelot Teshuvot Igrod Moshe, lengthy, beautiful tshuva, but that core of it is because of the question that you just brought. So therefore,
wasn't the copper table made of stone in the second temple, or am I misremembering?
well, it's Mizbeach Adama, we're going to deal with that in just one moment. And going further, says the Gemara, now that we spoke about this pasuk in Yechezkel that calls the Shulchan Mizbeach, the Gemara says, wait a second, hold on. You start with Mizbeach, right? And then you say, Zeh Shulchan Asher Lifnei Hashem. So you're calling the Shulchan Mizbeach. Why? Why can't you just be normal and say, Shulchan? Why do you have to call the Shulchan Mizbeach? That's, odd and mildly strange. So says the Gemara, Patach beMizbeach v'siyem beShulchan. Start saying, calling it Mizbeach, and then he says Shulchan. Well, we also know the Targum Yoratan says that this is talking about Shulchan. We know he talks about Shulchan. Rabbi Yochanan v'Resh Lakish Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish both said, Bizman shebet hamikdash, this is so powerful. When we had the Bet HaMikdash, Mizbeach mechaper al adam. You know what the atonement of a person would be? Mizbeach. You bring a korban, that will be the process of atonement. Now we don't have that. You know what atones on a person? Achshav shulchano shel adam mechaper alav. Nowadays is your shulchan, your table in 2023 on your Shabbat table, and your weekday table, that's mechaper alav, that atones on a person. What does that mean? Rashi over here says, Haknasad orchim. When you open your doors and you let people in, and you invite guests, that invitation you extend to others, that you share your table with other people, that is your atonement. Right? That's powerful. That's pretty amazing. Right? That's pretty amazing. What you say at the table also is true. Of course, you have to, a Mishnah says in Pirkei Avot, you eat and you don't say Divrei Torah, that's like Zivchei Metim, Chas v'Shalom. Of course, you have to say Divrei Torah. On every Seudah, a person has to say Divrei Torah. But conceptually, to open a person's home to guests, that's a tremendous thing. Now, the Maharsha says, and this is, not Maharsha over here, but Maharsha in Masechet Baba Batra, Daf Samech. Maharsha there says that the importance of opening your doors and bringing other people in, he references a Gemara that we had in Masechet Brachot. If you remember, on Daf Chaf Hei. The Gemara there in Daf Chaf Hei says that when you are Ma'arich, when you wait on your shulchan, you don't bench quickly. You wait, maybe guests are going to come, right? That's going to be ben olam haba, a tremendous thing. The Gemara says about the person that is ma'arich al shulchano, right? Ma'arichin lo yamav ushnotav. You lengthen your seudah, hoping to host some guests. That maybe someone that doesn't have seudah is going to come. The structure of the community was different perhaps back then, but you wait for guests to come, and you're ma'arich. Ma'arichin lo yamav ushnotav. Right? You could think about that Gemara when your guests are not on time on Shabbat, right? And they davened in a 10 o'clock minyan, and you're waiting, and you're looking at your wife is looking at you. You could bring the Gemara out and Masechet Brachot and take a look. It's important. Now, based on that Gemara, you could also say that the reason is they wanted the Gemara there in Ba'al Batra suggests that they wanted to make it asur to eat meat after Churban HaBayit, right? And Rabbi Yeshua didn't agree with it. And a person said, when a person leaves off a little bit of his geschmack food that he has, that's considered like a korban. You give of yourself a moser nefesh to remember something for Beit HaMikdash, and you don't have full pleasure. You have full pleasure. That also is the aspect of korban that you're makriv. It's brought in Sifrei Hasidut this a lot, that if you have ta'ava for a food and you're moshech yadav in the middle, then you still want to eat more of a gishmak, delicious piece of food, and you're moshech yadav to control a person, that's considered bigger than a ta'anit, right? So if you do it for kavod of the Beit HaMikdash, that's like a korban as well, right? There's actually halachot of how to run a table because of Churban HaBayit. Now we're stepping foot into Chodesh Tammuz and Av. It's actually appropriate in Siman Tafkuf Samech. The whole Siman that talks about things that we do, Zecher LaChurban. Things that we do because the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed. So one of them is, you don't set up a table, a full table like what it used to be. You leave an empty place. The jewelry of a woman is different. The music is different. All of those things that we have, that we do, lezecher hachurban, but those also are attached to this. Shulchano shel adam mechaper alav. We have a Gemara to finish. Says the Gemara. Kol hakelim shel mikdash yesh lahem shenim. The Gemara said every vessel in the mikdash had duplicates. Shnim and Shlishim, but the Mizbeach HaZahav and Mizbeach HaNechoshet, the two altars, didn't have because they're not Mekabel Tumah. So it says the Gemara, Mizbeach HaNechoshet dichtiv. How do you know that Mizbeach HaNechoshet is not Mekabel Tumah? Because it is considered the ground, and the ground is not Mekabel Tumah, right? Anything that's mechubar lekarka is not mekabel tumah. How do you know that the mizbeach is called something that's ground? Dichtiv mizbeach adama ta'aseli. It calls the mizbeach hanechoshet, the mizbeach hachitzon, mizbeach adama. It calls it adama, and therefore it's not mekabel tumah. It's not susceptible to tumah. Mizbeach, even though that's covered, right? We just spoke about that. Mizbeach adama ta'aseli. Mizbeach hazahav. How do you know the inside mizbeach, the mizbeach haketoret, mizbeach hazahav is considered not susceptible to tumah? Dichtiv hamenorah vehamizbechot. Same perek, same place in Yechazkel. It calls it menorah and mizbechot. Puts both of the mizbechot together, compares them together. So therefore, we learn the mizbeach hazahav also is compared to Mizbeach HaNechoshet, and because Mizbeach HaNechoshet is called Adama, and it's not susceptible to Tum'ah, you give all of those halachot of not being susceptible to Tum'ah to Mizbeach HaZahav as well. Says the Gemara, Itkush Mizbeach Zeh Lazeh, the Mizbechot are both compared together. The Chachamim Omrim Miperesh Shem Mesupin. They're a very strange thing in the Mishnah. Said Chachamim say, you know why they're not susceptible to Tum'ah? Because they are covered. We just said that if you have cover, if anything, that's the reason for being susceptible to tumah. So says the Gemara, what? Adarabba. On the contrary, kevad mesupininu mitmeu. Because they're covered with metal, they should be susceptible to tumah. What are you saying? The Chachamim say because they're covered, they're not susceptible to tumah. The Gemara says, Ema Chachamim metameim mipnei shehem mesupin. She say, no, Chachamim correcting the language of the Mishnah, says Chachamim disagree and say no, Mizbeach is susceptible to Tum'ah because of their cover. Exactly because of that, actually, right? Now there's a lot to talk about this. So that's one way. Or Ibait Ema, Rabbanan, Rabbi Eliezer Amri. Rabbanan are answering to Rabbi Eliezer. They say, "My datech, what do you think? Mishum de mesupin, because they are covered, they should be tameh." No. Miptal batil sipuyon gabayhu. That their sipui, their cover, the thin gold or the thin copper that's around them, it's miptal batli, is nullified and batel to the actual mizbeach. The mizbeach is called mizbeach adama, and therefore it's not susceptible to tumah, even though that it has a copper cover, because the cover is batel to the mizbeach. So says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Abahu, Amar Rabbi Elazar. Now a little agadic ending of the Gemara. Once speaking about mizbeach hazahav, you would have ketoret on top of it on fire every single day for years and years and years. How much is, pure gold is very soft and very sensitive. So you put fire on top of it every single day, it thins out, and at some point it'll be gone. That top middle part of it that you put the coals on top and ketoret you burn on it every single day, it gets damaged. Try it at home, or don't try it at home, right? It's going to be gone. So says the Gemara, Talmidei Chachamim en or shel Geinam sholetet b'hen. Talmidei Chachamim, the fire of Geinam is not going to affect them. Now the Marsha explains, you know why? Because the Torah is magna umatzla, right? The Gemara says in Masechet Sotah Daf Chaf Aleph that the Torah protects a person from Yisurim, but protects you also from Yetzer Hara, right? Magen from Yisurim matzil mi Yetzer Hara, even be'itna delo asik be. So says the Gemara, Talmidei Chachamim, according to Marsha, they're not going to sin because they're always attached to the Torah. But even if they would sin, says the Marsha, even if they would sin, they go to Geinam, because you see, the Talmidei Chachamim are actually judged more severely than other people. The Gemara says, Shkagod na'aseh b'ayin kizedonot. Hashem expects more from them, and therefore, if they actually do sin, they're gonna go. They get a special invitation, VIP, to a very warm place, right? So if they do sin, they will have to be cleansed in that hot place. But it's not going to be sholet. The esh of the Geinam is not going to be sholet. It's not going to rule over them. It's not going to penetrate them in that way, because kal vachomer salamandra. What's a salamandra? Salamandra is Rashi explains over here, is a creature that was sheretz, that will be created from an ongoing fire for 7 years. Now this is not just stam, because the Rashi explains in Masechet Chulin Kuf Chav Zayin that this was through witchcraft, through kishuf. So it's not, don't go start a fire and say, I'm going to keep this for 7 years and see what happens. Because you have to have the second component of kishuf as well. But nevertheless, whatever this salamander was, the legend has it that if you smear the blood of this on your body, it is fireproof. Because it itself is fireproof, so the blood of it is a liquid that makes you fireproof. So says the Gemara, it's a toledet esh. It's created from esh. Hasach midama, if you smear its blood on you, en or shalotet ba, the fire would not, the flame would not be sholet, would not penetrate you. Talmidei Chachamim shekol gufan esh. A definition. The Gemara is here giving a definition of a Talmid Chacham. The definition of a Talmid Chacham is the entire essence of his is Torah. A person that the Torah defines every essence of their life. Like shekol gufan esh, his whole body is made out of Torah, which is esh. Tichtiv. The pasuk says, "Halo kol dvari ke'esh neum Hashem." That my word, Hashem says, the Torah is esh, is fire. Mimino esh tat lamot. The Torah is like fire. Alachat kama v'chama. Kol sheken kal vachomer, that is not, the Torah is going to protect them from the fire. Amar Resh Lakish, you're going to just finish this last piece over here. Amar Resh Lakish, en or shel Geinam sholetet beposhei Israel. We're going to talk about this tonight. The Poshei Israel, even the sinners, the Esh of Geinam does not penetrate them, does not destroy and finish them. It's a process of cleansing and atonement, but does not finish them. We learn this from Mizbeach HaZahav, right? What we just discussed. Just like Mizbeach HaZahav she'en alav ela ke'ovi dinar zahav, the gold plate on top of it was mamash just the thickness of a dinar zahav, very thin. Kama shanim, for so many hundreds of years, it was up and running. And the fire did not ruin it, did not penetrate it, did not finish it. Poshei Israel, shemeneim mitzvot karimon, a sinner, a Jewish sinner, Poshei Israel, that still are meleim mitzvot karimon, still they're filled with mitzvot. Dichtiv kepelach harimon rakatech, you're like a piece of pomegranate. Rakatech. Now, Rakatech, the Gemara darshins, the Karin Shebach, the empty ones, the ones who are empty from mitzvot, still are filled mitzvot karimon. Al tikri Rakatech, don't read Rakatech, ela Rekarin Shebach, the empty ones of yours, the Poshei Israel, the sinners, that they are not going to be finished with Geinam, even though that they have to go through a process of atonement and kapara. Be'ezrat Hashem will explain this at the Siyum tonight. I hope to see all of you. Be'ezrat Hashem der. Chazak u'baruch.
Chazak u'baruch. So we're finished.
Good night.